All right, we good. We live. We live. All right, we working. We working.
All
What's
right.
going on, you guys? This is Malcolm Chu, whatever you want to call me, from Stories and Eats. It's a little bit different. It's a stream that we're doing here on StreamYard. Live on YouTube now. So I have somebody very special with me. That does a lot of stuff on the behind the scenes and a lot of stuff as far as artist development, a lot of stuff as far as consulting work, artist stuff. But I'm gonna let her dive more into what she actually does because she plays a lot of hats. So
Mhm.
I want you guys to please meet Toni Blackman. Toni, I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be. I'm doing artist residency in Atlanta right now, so working with a group from Senegal called Bidi Boubès. And I do a lot of work with African artists who are from the continent. And I'm an artist myself, and the first ever U.S. hip hop ambassador. And so, yeah, you're right. I wear many hats. I'm
Hmm.
a writer. I do a lot of artist development coaching, and I coach a lot of MCs and spoken word artists how to command the stage, how to rock the mic, tighten up your flow. I'm a freestyle specialist, teach people how to freestyle. And this is my passion work. My heart work is artwork.
That's awesome. That's tight. That's tight. Because I was really intrigued because I know I met you through my mom because you guys
Mhm.
have you guys relationship too. So I
Yeah,
wanted to I want to take it back to even your stardom and your beginning of
yeah.
your existence. So what was it like? What was Tony's atmosphere growing up? What was like your childhood? What was the energy like? How where'd you come from? Where were you born? All that stuff. Take us back to the beginning.
I grew up in the Bay Area. Um, and I grew up in a town that there's not a lot of arts opportunities. Like it wasn't like growing up in the city. Um, there were no dance classes. But you had to make a way, and it forced me to be creative because my cousins were all athletically inclined, and I wasn't in the same way.
Hmm.
So I had to find my thing, and my thing ended up performing poetry, performing rap, dancing, and it stuck with me. I went to college at Howard University, and I took a deep dive into the stage and talent shows, and I ended up paying for college as a scholarship competitor on the speech and drama team. So I
Hmm.
competed in performance for
Hmm.
many years, and and then I started traveling. So I
Okay.
started. My first international gig, was in London with Kwame Alexander, who's an award-winning author and the producer of the crossover TV show for Disney. Fast forward many years later, he got this deal with Disney and he hired me to be the coach. So I coached two A-list actors in poetry performance, and also taught them to freestyle.
That's awesome. So
And
you said growing up in the Bay. So what was it like as far as your just like dive a little deeper to like your childhood? So you said the city, right? So the city is San Francisco, right?
yeah, as San Francisco, Oakland would be
Okay.
considered a city.
Okay.
Um, 35 miles, 35 minutes east of Oakland. And I grew up in a place called Pittsburgh, California.
Okay.
And so, I was a cheerleader. I did those things. I was on a volleyball team, mostly on the bench.
Hmm.
And and I did a lot of talent shows though.
Okay.
A lot of talent shows. And I had a crew called the Fresh Girls. And we competed in a lot of shows and rap battles. I won the McDonald fries rap contest at McDonald's for
Mm.
the Bay Area. And that was my beginning.
That's cool though. That's cool though.
Yeah, that was my beginning.
Okay. So it's like even with musical influences, because it all starts somewhere. So like
Yeah.
where'd you get your influences from even back then? Because and like we always kind of remember like where it kind of still kind of starts from. So like what was the first thing that kind of caught your eye and caught your ear when you were like, oh, I like this. I like this. Like,
I think as a kid, I listened to my mom and aunt's albums, my grandparents' albums, and they had Gil Scott Heron
mm-hmm,
and the legendary poet who did "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised,"
mm-hmm,
and they also had the Last Poets and And I ended up, today I consider Abiodun from the Last Poets. He's like a mentor, an uncle, a dad. I'm very close to him and his family. And I think, what else did I listen to? Oh, everything, Earth, Wind and Fire,
Mhm.
Whispers, whatever they were listening to. I was a music head. Like, I loved Louis Armstrong. I loved Peter Tosh. As a kid when I was growing up, my aunt Benny listened to a lot. Her and her husband had this huge vinyl collection, and so
Mhm.
that's where I first got introduced to jazz. And so I grew up listening to all kinds of jazz and smooth jazz, from Najee to what's the guy? What You Won't Do for Love, Michael Franks.
Mhm.
And I listened to a lot of that music too, and it definitely influenced who I became as a performer. Yeah.
That sounds cool. That's like, because I grew up listening, like I'm younger, but like I always listen to like the stuff from back in the day. Like
Yeah.
that stuff's still prominent into my
Yes,
playlist and stuff.
classic.
Yeah,
Classic
classic music. Like,
material. Yeah,
so
yeah.
also have a question, because I mean, you know, times have changed like drastically, right? As far as the musical sounds and stuff like that. So how would you compare um the sounds from like the 80s, the 70s, all that stuff, even further back all the way till now? How would you compare it and contrast it now, based off of your position and where you stand?
Well, I think a lot of people say the best music was in the 70s. A lot of people have that opinion and that argument, but I think we go back to the bebop era with jazz and a lot of improvisational jazz, when straight ahead, went to a different level and got really creative. That music was almost like the gangster rap of its day, in terms of parents and the older folks like not really approving of it. And then you went through the doo-wop era in the 60s, and then leading into the 70s, where there was the conscious music, where people were singing about war and freedom and injustice, and really beautiful love songs, into disco. The 80s, there was a lot of great music, and we came with these big sounds. And
Mhm.
the 90s was my era, my favorite era. And I loved what happened in the 90s with regard to R&B and hip hop. And in the backdrop of hip hop, at that time, hip hop was sampling all of this stuff, like, from the past. And so you'd hear your parents' music in your music, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and then there were a lot of jazz samples in hip hop. So a lot of hip hop heads from my era in the 90s like became jazz heads by accident, because you want to
Right.
know, who is that Tribe Called Quest sampled? Oh, that was Ron Carter. Oh, that was Weldon Irving. And then you go back searching for those songs, Freddie Hubbard. You go back searching for that music. And I think that greatly influences a lot of us more than we acknowledge.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
most definitely. It definitely like influences a lot more. I just feel like now, because like even nowadays, I feel like the music, as far as even on the rap side, and I won't even say not necessarily the R&B side, because I still have like there's still strong acts,
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
in R&B side now. But I feel like even with hip hop now, I feel like it's just like there could be more that could be done to, you know, take it up a notch. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I think there's so much more that can be done, and I think one of the unfortunate things about the music business is that sometimes people lean more towards the business and less toward the music, and
Right.
the music suffers because of that. And so when the commodification of the art becomes your main priority, and you're not developing as an artist, you're not studying the music of the past, you're not moving in integrity and heightening access to your own creativity, you're going to put out mediocrity, and maybe the mediocrity sells, but it doesn't make it not mediocre. It just
Mhm.
makes it mediocrity that sells.
Mm. That's crazy. Mediocrity yourselves. Yeah, that's tough one, because I mean, like, being in the studio sessions, like I know you been in
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
plenty
yeah,
of, and being in these sessions, and you see artists, you see them, you see some that really excel with the recording process, right?
yeah,
and then you see some that struggle, but they make good music though, technically to the masses, right? That
Yeah,
does
yeah,
numbers and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I
yeah.
always find that very, very interesting when I'm studying and being in these sessions, right? And just kind of being around. How do you feel about that? Because like as far as just having the process of recording, what would you even like? What is it like when you see an artist struggling in the studio to make a record? Like, what do you notice and what do you kind of like see?
Well, I think we have to be clear. Like sometimes an artist is struggling because they don't have it. They don't have the talent. So there are artists who don't have talent and don't have creativity, but they have a look and they have charisma. And so they need people to be creative, feed them ideas and concepts, and then they have to be packaged in order to maximize the 2% of talent they have. But then you have people who are super talented and yet they don't have access to their own creativity. They maybe have never cultivated creativity. So someone else has to write everything for them, come up
Mm,
with concepts for them, and then coach them to be able to be out there. And then there are folks who have it all. They have the talent and they have the creativity, but sometimes those folks don't lack the discipline of the others.
mm,
And I do think that, you know, we joke about this all the time. Sometimes the less talented you are, the more successful you become because you only got one thing. You
right.
got one job, one job. And with that singularity or focus, you can make things happen sometimes easier. Um, but I think if we lived in a world that was fair, the people with talent would be up front, but that's just not how life works.
Mm,
Um, and so watching folks who struggle in the studio, you have to figure out why are they struggling.
mm,
And some folks are struggling. You know, there's some artists that just don't have it. They just don't have it. And I remember working with one artist. She really wanted to rap. I mean, really bad. But after months, I finally had to say, you know, it's not there. It's not there. And so then but she's very strong as a spoken word artist. And she
mm,
has a beautiful speaking voice. And how could she take the energy and passion and commitment that she had for rap and apply it to spoken word? And if she wanted to do this lane in the music industry, there's a lane now. You can get a Grammy for a spoken word album, you
mm,
know? And so there are spaces. So it's figuring out what your positioning is and how you can do the thing that you do well and
mm,
play your position. Now, there's some folks who, with coaching, can do anything. And so there are some of us who need coaching, right? Some people are naturally gifted and they just need a little guidance. Some of us need a coach. And if you commit to working with the coach over time, you can soar, you grow wings. It's not natural. And we look at some folks, they weren't naturals, but they started very young developing.
right.
And now they're powerful and they're strong creatively.
Mm. So, dang, that was very, very well put. And like, now I really want to know like what inspired you to even get into developing artists and consulting with them in the first place. Like, where was that? Like, what was like? How did they even come about in the first place? Like,
No, I've always done it. My cousin, there was these guys doing an interview on me. I have a project called Rhyme Like a Girl and another project called Freestyle Union Cypher Workshop. I've had fellowships from social entrepreneurship funds to support the work. And I thought it was a community project, but it really was artist development. So
mm,
I conceptualized
mm,
this idea that we could elevate hip hop one MC at a time
right,
by me creating this workshop that anybody could come and they could build their freestyle skills, which then would make them more confident, which then would make them better artists. And it's an innate gift. I was a coaching prodigy in college. I worked with I interned with a media training firm that taught public speaking and media prep.
mm-hmm,
And I was never exposed to this, and this was before it was trendy. But I could do my boss and the superiors, all the older employees, they would have to prep 2 hours for a client, 3 hours. I could walk in the room and know what to do with a client.
mm,
put me in a bad position because then I was young, arrogant, whatever, whatever. And the job didn't last as long because I didn't have mentors who could guide me and to show me. And looking back, I had leverage.
Mm.
You know, for they were paying me 200 for something they should have paid me 2 grand. And I got played because I didn't know the game. I didn't know the field. But it's a natural innate gift. And my cousin in this documentary interview, she said she told a story about how when we were 9 years old, that I was directing a talent show in my grandparents' backyard, and I was charging a nickel for friends to get in. And I forgot about it. I
Mm.
don't remember it, but
Mm.
she remembered it so clearly. And I was like, oh, I've always been this person. I just didn't have the support to cultivate the gifts. And so I had to find my way on my own.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like even with finding your way on your own, we all hit like bumps in the road, even trying
Yeah.
to like find our way on our own. So what were some of the bumps in the road that you hit trying to
Oh,
find?
yo, many, many bumps. When I started Freestyle Union Cypher Workshop, I was accused of trying to feminize hip hop. I would be on panels. So, me adding structure and ground rules, there were dudes on panels that would say she's trying to feminize hip hop. That's whack. And,
Dang.
you know, I got, there was a, I got judged, even attacked because of the ground rules. Because one of the ground rules in my cipher workshop is no battling, right? And there's a no battling rule, not because I'm against battling, but because battling changes the vibe, the attention. And in a workshop, the attention should be on yourself, not on someone else. As long as I'm
Mm.
focusing on someone else, I'm not developing, I'm not growing, I'm competing, which is a different activity. And
Hmm.
so because of that rule, I was judged. She's trying to feminize hip hop, and she's devaluing the culture, and she's ruining the tradition. Now, fast forward 10, 15, 20 years later, some of those very guys apologized to me because battling got whack.
Mm.
There's a period where anybody and everybody would get in battles, people who could barely rap. And my premise is that you should earn the right to battle. You don't use a public battleground to build your skills. You use it to strengthen yourself as a competitor, but you should learn to rap before you show up to the rap battle.
Definitely.
It's my belief. Or you're
Definitely.
wasting people's times and you're watering down the art form. And but I would get judged so much, so much. And then they show up 20 years later, the same people who tried to tear me down, damage my name, verbally attack me, then show up as if I'm sorry makes a difference now. It doesn't. But thank you.
Mm. Mm. So it's like all because you were structuring the craft, they considered it feminizing hip hop.
Yeah, and then there are the other folks who didn't understand. They said, it's hip hop. It's supposed to be free. You're just
Mm.
supposed to let. I'm like, what that exists over time has no constraints, no rules, no guidance. You want to have a strong family, you've got to lead the family. And now part of the what's happening with hip hop is because people like me weren't heard, weren't
Mm.
listened to, and weren't acknowledged. Now they're complaining about rap. The rappers themselves, the music industry professionals themselves, the same folks who did not want to put in prevention strategies, are put in guidelines to ensure its preservation and future, are now complaining about it or what's wrong with it, which is fascinating. We did it to
It is
ourselves.
fascinating. Yeah.
We did it to ourselves. This could
Wow.
have stopped. We stopped. There were programs like mine. I wasn't the only person doing the work I was doing. I know there were other people doing it in other parts of the country and the world, but it wasn't seen as important. It was seen as that underground shit.
Mm.
It wasn't going to be, you weren't a viable entity. I had friends I went to Howard with who were in the music industry, who I would literally go up to network with, and now they would greet me, pat me on my back, and then conveniently run out of business cards.
Mm,
So yeah, I got dissed a lot.
mm. That's crazy though. Like, I mean, would you say that a lot of people that were doing in your field, like you said, people in other parts of the country and other countries too, were they mostly women doing this?
Mostly women. Mostly women. Women are
Wow.
the organizers. Women women are the core organizers when it comes to arts and culture. Even socio-political organizing, the backdrop is always women. You look at the civil rights movement, although Martin Luther King, John Lewis, and Al Young, all those people get the credit.
Mm,
People forget Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Baker.
mhm,
The beginning of SNCC movement, it was women in the house.
mm.
I mean, come on. The most famous person for leading people to freedom during slavery was who?
Dang,
Harriet Tubman.
dang. So it's literally another one of those cases then.
Yeah, we have not learned this lesson yet. Mankind has not learned this lesson yet. And I often, sometimes it makes me a little sad. Like, where would humanity be if we listened to women, particularly Black women?
Yeah, yeah. Because like it's just funny how like it's like when men we pack our bags, right? We're about to go out of town. We always end up just throwing stuff or just all in
Yeah,
the but we get the structure to properly pack from a woman most of the time.
right,
So
right, right, right.
it's literally one of those situations where it's like very, very interesting to know that on the back end, a lot of Black women are really the organizers and people that try to structure things in place as far as on the music side of hip hop too.
Yeah,
And don't get a lot of credit for it. And that's just the thing that's kind of like disheartening, you know what I mean? So it's like
yeah.
even with now, right? Do you think there's ever going to be a shift in that?
I think, we look at what's happening now in the world, the political unrest, the war. The most we can do is keep speaking up and pray.
Hmm.
Each person, I think that there's artist development and then there's personal development, personal growth and development. And the people who are aware, who have a certain level of self-awareness, it's imperative that we continue to grow, that we make ourselves stronger, that we do our inner work so that we can be confident enough to speak up in when our opinion is unpopular, and that we do the inner work so that we can take optimal care of ourselves and our health so that we can live long enough to make an impact towards change, and that we can make decisions and trust our gut. And that's something, like, I think I had my own issues with regard to my personal growth and development because of my background and my childhood. And so I came from, there was a relative amount of dysfunction. And so I had to deal with my own self-esteem issues, my own confidence issues. So I wasn't able to be as loud as I should have been, could have been, right? And as firm in my belief, I was still seeking approval from others. So if someone, like, I know in my gut, I was right. But if these three people questioned me, I would question me. And
Yeah.
this is why personal growth and development is so important, and why when I talk to particularly younger generation and folks in their 20s, like that's a big part of my conversation. Is like, how are you taking care of yourself and your mind? How are you positioning yourself so that a lot of younger people I know care about business and success and simultaneously care about the world, right? And humanity. And sometimes that can get you stuck because you're looking at how effed up the world is, right? But you still have to do your work.
Hmm.
You still have to build your system. And I know some folks right now are really feeling like what they're doing is frivolous because they're working on love songs, or because they've got a community creative writing project and people are hungry and poverty is rising. And yo, you still got to do your work, because look, a song, one song can save a million lives. One song can influence a million people to make different choices. So everything everyone does is important. Just don't be shallow about it, and don't be superficial, and don't be motivated by stardom or by impressing people or by material things. Build build wealth in a way that is intentional. Intentional and intentionality, I think, could bring a lot more peace to many of us if we're more intentional and being clear. And if charity is in your heart, be intentional. You could make what you do charitable. You make money 5 days a week, you volunteer 1 day a week. You have 10 paying clients, you have 2 clients that don't pay because they pay minimal. Like that, you can have a sliding scale for those 2 clients. But there are many, many ways for us to live our lives so we're not ridden with guilt and we're focused on making a difference and making a change. And I'm preaching what I'm trying to practice.
We
So
all are.
I'm in a space now where I'm learning to charge what I'm worth. I mean, the workshop I do now is the same workshop I've been doing for 25 years. But I'm paid much more for it now because I know my worth and I know my value and I'm rooted in it. Like my coaching clients, I used to not charge people at all. And one of my project manager, Francesca, I was talking about Under Earners Anonymous and maybe I should join. And she was like, "You're not under earning, you're just not charging. How about you start by charging?" And so there's that space too. And it's such a fine line between being greedy and neglectful and caught up in capitalism to being heart centered and being led by love. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be in the balance of that, And everybody's not for humanity. Some people are selfish and self-absorbed, and I think that this is why the inner work is so important again, so that you know that you're not being ruled by your ego. And there's a couple of famous people who are highly respected ego monsters.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a lot of ego monsters out here, and and I caught what you said too, as far as being led by love, right? With
Yeah.
with your craft, that I feel like for a minute that was probably one of my biggest downfalls. Like, and when like, but I didn't feel like it, but I know that that was hindering me too with certain stuff, right? Because we all have bills, right? We have to pay.
Right.
So at the same time, you have to find that balance, and I feel like I just recently just started to get in that more right. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? As far
Mm-hmm.
as like finding that balance in between, because like I love what I do. I love creative directing stuff. I love being
Yeah.
working, having a camera in my hand. I love, you know, um, calling shots. I love, you know what I'm saying? I like all of this stuff that's all creative stuff. So
Yeah.
like now
Yeah.
as far as like what would you advise for people to do as far as finding that balance? Like what would be the steps that you would tell your younger self actually?
What would I tell my younger self?
Mm-hmm.
I would tell my younger self that it's okay to get paid for what you do. And that it's important to know your value. Let me get smarter. It's important to remember your value and that you offer value added and to charge what you're worth. It's also okay to prioritize giving. I'm sorry. It's okay to prioritize giving. And in prioritizing giving, you have to monitor it. You have to manage it so that it makes sense and it's not taking away from your ability to make an impact and take care of yourself at the same time. I would tell myself that. I would tell myself, "Toni, you're brilliant and your unique ideas are special. And just because it's never been done before doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done.
Right.
And it's okay to take credit for your work. And wanting acknowledgement for what you've created is not is there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And it's important to protect it.
Mm.
There are biters out there in the world
Oh yeah, a whole lot of them, a whole
who
lot.
will steal your and not give you credit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't tell you the number of people who come up to me one on one and tell me how much my work influenced their work, and they'll get on the podium and not mention their influence,
Right.
but they'll take all the credit.
Mm. That's true. They will take all the credit and and not give you a dime of credit for anything that you know what I mean? And it's sickening that it's like that, you know, and also it's another thing as far as like, you know, you've done so much now. Like what's next for you? What's your plan, your mission now as of 2023? What
Ah,
is going forward? What's your mission now?
moving into 2024, it is my mission to fully manifest my destiny. And I am, one of my prayers is, God, lead me to what it is that I'm supposed to do. Make
Mm-hmm.
it plain for me, make it clear. I am going to be obedient. I had a health scare. You get the health scare, you start really talking to the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, look, I'm moving forward. No doubt, no fear. I'm all in. I release all pain. I release all worry. I release all anxiety. I release all stress. I am filled with faith. I am walking in faith. I'm walking through the fear. And what came to me, what started coming, I started getting booked to perform again,
Mm-hmm.
which was not on my bingo card to perform as much as I've been performing. I started getting booked to do my cipher workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done them in a variety of settings. And I started getting booked to speak. And so this is what's happening in 2024. I'm performing, I'm speaking, and I'm doing my signature workshop. I got a coaching client on retainer, and then I've had like 4 random coaching clients. And so I'm learning how to set fees. I'm learning where to compromise. I'm learning how to negotiate. And the next step is to finish so that I can release my stuff. I have so much stuff I haven't released. I have 2 meditation albums, hip hop meditation albums. I have EP with hip hop soul mindfulness music. I have African, I don't know what you would call it. It's an African mix music project, some with dance music. And so now I'm 2024, I'm just releasing everything. And I have my book, Wisdom of the Cipher, that I've just been procrastinating. I have a publisher. It was supposed to come out for September and it hasn't, but I need to now do that final step. There's one thing that needs to be added so the book can be released. So Wisdom of the Cipher will be coming out. And I have a memoir writing coach so that I can rewrite my memoir. There were agents interested in it, but the book needs to be rewritten. So it's
Mm-hmm.
stronger. I wrote it at a time where I was afraid to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
No longer afraid to tell the truth. And I'm going to be working with a memoir writing coach for 6 months so that I can rewrite Travels of a Lyrical Ambassador. And that's the same title on my YouTube channel. And a lot of the work, because I have traveled to 50 countries around the world and I've been doing hip hop from more than half of my life. So, a lot of stories to tell. But I want to focus on cultural diplomacy and my hip hop beginnings and how I got to doing the hip hop ambassador work. And that's on deck. And so I'm consulting, coaching, and being an artist. And I'm excited. I just did a big presentation at Warner Music for their social justice summit in New York City. And it was really exciting because I had in my gut, I said, I'm gonna hire a beatboxer. And they were like, you're going to hire a beatboxer for your speech? Yeah, I am. And I'm so glad I listened to my gut because it was dope. So
That's fine.
I was able to open rhyming and then go straight into my talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked me to do a warm up activity with the conference participants. So I did a cipher workshop with them, and they did their introductions in my cipher workshop, and it killed. Like it brought the whole house down,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and I realized at that moment that I've moved to a new level of confidence, a new level of communication, and a new level of performance.
Right.
and where I can weave it all together seamlessly. And so my inner work is to trust that what I'm doing is unique and special, and that I can prosper from doing it my way. And so the key now, I just got to figure out how to describe it for agents so that I can get books.
Most
So
definitely.
that's the challenge when you're doing new things. You can't Google how to pitch it, how to describe it. You got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. That sounds good. That's awesome. I mean, getting that confidence and you blossoming to the person you are now, I feel like that's dope as hell because I mean, like, it takes time to just build up the confidence. I would say just the equity of it within
Yeah.
yourself. Like it takes a lot of time, a lot of trial and error, a lot of experiences, and
Hmm.
just like it's not an easy thing. And I appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us and
Yeah.
converse with us. And I feel like there's a lot more stuff that we're gonna collab on in the future. And I'm gonna call you right after this to talk about it probably in a little bit.
Okay. Mhm.
Tony, I appreciate you tapping
Thank
in with us,
you. Thank you. Thank
joining
you.
us, and telling your story.
Yeah.
And yeah, you guys stay tuned for these clips that I'm about to roll out too. This is a dope conversation, so stay tuned for that. This is the first stream on my Story These platform,
Okay.
and yeah, I appreciate you coming out and talking with us.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All righty, all right. Thank you. I thank you. I appreciate you. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys. It's Malcolm Stories and he's Toni Blackman. See you guys in the next one.